Howdy do. What is boppin', my good people? We're gonna slap on the usual banner. Yeah, banner. And it's just gonna scroll and it's describing what we always do here. It's just question and answers thing, a little bit of jiving and vibing, pontificating together on dietary ethics, ethylism, painism, negative utilitarianism, antinatalism, and related subjects like promortalism and determinism, stuff like that. Fun little philosophy nonsense. And yeah, for the most part, it's just a Q&A. Like, if there's no questions, there ain't gonna be no answers. So it's just gonna be me sitting here by just jiving, vibing, hating life every moment of it. But hey, for the most part, life is okay lately. Sad.
Like, well, no, it is it is here or there. It is something we should recognize. Like, the composition of a community is important, and if anti-natal hunty, um, and one of them, I believe, they're linked is this Truth Wanted show, which I believe was at some point it was is an offshoot of Atheist Experience. I might be wrong with that, but anyway, they had a call in and someone called in about antinatalism. So let's have a look at that.
all. It's a topic I think it's a topic I've talked about before. I'm not sure if Brady has had experience talking about this, but let's see. We got Branch who's calling in from Wisconsin. Branch,
So this is Brant. I wonder if this is Brant who follows the channel. I haven't seen Brant in the chat yet, but Brant usually does come to the live stream. So Brant, if you're here and this was you calling in, then let us know. And actually, yeah, look, it is affiliated with the Atheist Experience because the Atheist Experience, oh, you can't see it because my head is covering it, but in the bottom right, they've got a little logo that says ACA, which is the Atheist Community of Austin. And that was the group that ran Atheist Experience. So, yeah, it does look like they are. Um, oh, no, JE's saying that Brant it goes by anti-social ethicist, but I'm talking
I
about Brant
do.
Gill, I think is their
That's
name
also
they
my
go by,
name.
the person who I sometimes see in my comment section and live stream. But I guess there can be more than one Brant.
No, they're the same
Um,
person.
cool. let's continue.
What do you want to talk to us about today?
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you all if you think there is such thing as good biological parents, given that it's unnecessary to have a child to live a okay life, and all lives have some type of harms and suffering that's inevitably death, assuming death is the harm.
Yeah, so this is an interesting idea because this kind of relates to antinatalism. And I've talked about antinatalism on this show before. Antinatalism, in short, is sort of this idea that
Oh, I didn't know they've spoken about this on this show before. I've not seen that clip. I don't. If anyone has the clip of, if there is a clip of when they spoke about it on the show before, definitely send it over.
it's actually more moral not to have kids. There's a couple of different popular places where this conversation has showed up. There's even Reddit subreddits called, antinatalism, child-free subreddits, and this has been a growing view in recent years. And it's this idea that look, climate change is on the horizon, but beyond that, life. There's a lot of suffering. There's a lot of unintended harm that could be happening when you bring a kid into this world. So, isn't it more ethical to not have kids at all? Now, of course, there's implications to following that line of reasoning, but it's a really interesting argument because I think if you take it very seriously, it there's very serious ramifications if the sort of anti-natalist assumptions are true, in that there is more suffering than good that comes out of life.
Okay,
Yes,
that's not
Lawrence is
necessarily
about
the
to
assumption. That may
respond,
be the
but
assumption of some antinatalists, but um, a life doesn't have to be overwhelmingly suffering for an antinatalist to be against it. You know,
it's just a good point because I do believe that life is a majority suffering, but I also am agreeing with the Benatarian asymmetry argument that it doesn't have to be. Like, I think every life is a majority suffering, but if you like could show me a life that like was a majority pleasure and just had like a single pinprick worth of suffering in it, like the asymmetry argument would still stand strong and say that it's not worth bringing that life into existence. So,
the consent argument doesn't assume that. The risk argument doesn't assume that. The axiological asymmetry doesn't assume that.
fuck this.
Imposition doesn't assume that. In fact, none of them assume that. Even the quality of life argument. The only argument you could say that maybe would assume that is the quality of life one, but I don't think the quality of life one actually does need to assume that. But it gets close to it.
Folks like David Benatar has written about this, and then we talked about was it
Oh, so this guy's familiar with it. Like he knows about Benatar and stuff.
not Thomas Pynchon, guy who
Thomas Ligotti, I guess he's going to talk about.
wrote the book we were talking about last week on the show. I've talked about this. So yeah, there's some literature about it, and of course, there's a lot of people in popular media right now that are saying like, oh, we should be having more kids. We should be having as many kids as we want. So there's a lot of debate on this topic. Personally, I think there's interesting merits to an antinatalist worldview, but I'm also talking to Brady here, who has a kid. So
Oh, that's interesting. So this guy is maybe kind of sympathetic to antinatalism. It might actually be interesting to get this guy on. I might reach out to this guy because I think he's from like the skeptic sort of sphere. So it might be interesting, like antinatalist versus skeptic sort of thing. What's this guy's? What was this guy's name? He's objectively Dan. Do they have an email here? Ah, here. Okay, cool. I'll take note of that and I'll maybe reach out to them.
Brady, what are your thoughts on this? Have you talked about this topic much?
I was really influenced by the Duggars when we had a kid. We were going to wait for a while, but then we're like,
Such a
"No, they want us to
non-serious
wait."
response.
So we had a kid. But no, I think.
I wish you were serious about that. Were you actually influenced
Oh
by
no, yeah. It's like a fun joke between us because like the church that we came from, they're the type that are just like, hey, pump as many kids as you can because people are questioning the faith and this religion is going to die if you don't have as many kids as possible to indoctrinate. Yeah. So I definitely think like, here's my thing. I think it is unethical to choose to have -1 or more kids because that means you probably like proactively murdered one of them. You know what
I think it's an abortion
I don't know
joke
if he's just made like a really bad joke that I don't get. The other guy's laughing.
or a murder infanticide joke
Yeah,
or
I
something.
don't get that. I think he's making a joke about killing kids. I'm not sure.
I'm saying?
Yeah, sure.
But I definitely think that there is a cap. I think there is like hey, this is too many and you're not really being responsible or thinking about what if everyone did that? That's like a phrase that I grew up with. But wherever we go
Who
to,
gives a shit about your fucking
Sorry, hey
phrases, you
Rainbow.
little cunt? Like, I agree with that, Mao, also, but, like, you're about to go on to say, like, nothing fucking matters, basically. There is no, like, morality. Everything's just, like, oh, that's just woo-wah. People making claims without anything besides their just subjective opinion. That's just opinion. That a rapist who thinks women's bodies are put here by God for him to plunge his dick into is just as valid of a subjective worldview as someone that thinks that you need consent for everything and that it's an imposition to bring someone to the world. Like, basically, in this little fucker's mind, over here on the left and on the right, both of them, they both think that everything is just subjective. Like, it's just, yeah, you feel pain. I don't deny you feel pain. The pain is experienced as a bad thing, and I don't deny that. But to say you ought not experience pain, now that's going too far. That's like some cosmic god stuff. That's like saying that, like, I don't know, man. That's like saying the universe is alive and judging it or something. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's really just acknowledging that there's universal experiences. There's experiences that are fucking universal, and that is what we mean by objective, you cunt. But we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Was in the chat, and Rainbow's just asked, antinatalism engenders an epistemological conundrum as it endeavors to reconcile the moral imperative of minimizing suffering through non-procreation with the potential obliteration of the hedonistic spectrum. I don't think antinatalism actually does necessarily seek to minimize suffering. I think that is the ethical system it most aligns with, in terms of it just naturally kind of makes most sense to combine it with that. And I think most people in the community do.
Yeah, it's just most people do. So, antinatalism could be any reason. Basically, you could just really hate kids and be like, I fucking hate kids. Like, I don't want to see another one in this world. And every single person that brings one into the world is more of a chance of me seeing one. You know, you can have an antinatalist for that reason. Like, and technically, you know, if you think everybody should have that same viewpoint, then I guess you're an antinatalist. So, yeah, I mean, it's just like, yeah, I mean, yeah, everybody can have their own little unique spin on why they're an antinatalist. Like, I want to avoid hell, or Buddhist reincarnation. But pretty much, in my opinion, almost everything breaks down to suffering, and you don't want to suffer, or you don't want others to suffer. And if you don't want to suffer yourself, $5 equals your $5, blah, blah, blah. Basically, suffering logical reasoning would dictate that, like, if you don't want to suffer because you don't want to see kids in there annoying to you or something, then that should also apply to the risk of anybody else who'd be in the same predicament of yourself. And so, I don't know. Basically, it all leads down to suffering being the root thing that is bad, anyways. So, like, I don't know. He's about to say that, like, yeah, for the most part, it's suffering, and for him, it's suffering. But I don't know. It just seems to me that, like, it is suffering. Like, it's not like, I mean, people have their reasons. I'm not denying that, like, people. I'm just saying that the reasons are silly. The reasons are fucking silly sauce if they don't think it's suffering, because I can basically prove to them why it leads down to suffering is what they're really valuing. So, I mean, I don't know. Pretty much everything you value is related to prevention of suffering to some extent or another, or distraction from suffering, like basically terror management theory bullshit.
Align with minimizing suffering. I definitely align with that, but I don't think you necessarily have to take on an ethical system of wanting to minimize suffering to be antinatalist. You can just think it's wrong to impose suffering on others. But yeah, okay, cool. Okay, I can't see anything else in the chat at the moment.
The point of saying, well, all parents, this, everyone that, making decisions that, like, literally stopping billions and billions and billions and billions of years of biological inertia because of, like, a philosophy that should be applied across the board. It just doesn't, to me, it doesn't work that way. That's not how humanity works.
Gotcha. Brant, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I'd like to ask. I mean, I'm an ethicist, so I basically accept all the problems that people say is wrong with antinatalism. I'm just kind of like, those aren't problems to me. But so primordialism, animal suffering, all that stuff, I accept it all. But when it comes down to it, I'd like to ask, I guess, you two, if you think there actually is like some sort of right and wrong in the universe. Like, is there actions that we ought not to do? Like, is there something that's bad or good? Because if there is, I feel like.
See, I think this
that's
is
very fair.
important because, I mean, if you just think everything's woo-wah nonsense, and we're just having these conversations about right and wrong and what we should do and shouldn't do, and how the world's going in certain directions, and that, like, this politician says this and that, and that's a good thing or a bad thing. Every basically fucking claim of anything, and it all comes down to, like, well, why do you think that is a good thing or a bad thing or should occur or shouldn't occur or we should be backing you or agreeing with you? Like, why? And for me, it's that pain is a bad thing. It is universally experienced by all subjects as a bad thing, meaning it's objective because it's universal. I acknowledge, yeah, I acknowledge that it requires a subject. Therefore, ooh, but that means it's subjective. No, subjective means like one subject uses it this way, another subject uses it that way. Therefore, it's each their own. They're both valid. No, fuck that. I don't mean subjective in your little, ooh, to each their own way. No, when I say something is objective, what I mean is that it's universal. Okay, like there is no possible subject that could not experience it as such. So that's what I mean by objective. But these people, it's just like, oh, objective. The universe isn't watching us, and there's no God, and even if there was, like, how can? It's just like you can't. And under their view, it's just like because the universe isn't watching us, because the universe isn't judging, because there's no afterlife, because there's no such thing as karma. There's no such thing as objectivity because there's no divine punishment. There's no such thing as objectivity because you can do whatever you want without being smited or blighted in some way. It's an amoral universe, so to speak. You know, it's just because of that objectivity is just it's impossible. And so it's like, okay, fuck you. But whatever. Let's just continue.
Question. Yeah, well, to not to get too deep in the weeds and throwing every single philosophical term out there, but my moral philosophy has definitely changed throughout the years. Probably one of the biggest things that I deconstructed from my Christianity, because I used to just have a very simple idea of, well, whatever God says is right. God is good all the time, and all the time God is good. It's really just that.
Yeah, same. But then I went from that to like nothing fucking matters whatsoever, which is what you guys believe. Then I went from nothing fucking matters to, hey, I feel like something matters here. So I'm going to try to explore that. And because, like, for the longest time, I was like, nothing fucking matters. It's just whatever benefits society. And that is a good thing, which is what they believe, basically. So they're basically what I in high school was. They're adults believing what I believed in high school. And they're like, oh, I understand you. And I'm like, shut the fuck up. You're literally me in high school with your belief system, like talking out here like a bunch of clowns. And I went on a fucking exploration of like deep philosophy and like politics and shit, just trying to discover like what's the most consistent thing between all people, all life forms, like that are known to exist, aka earthly life forms. And it's pain. Pain is what we value above all things, and everything that basically breaks down to pain avoidance and yeah, it basically breaks down the pain avoidance behaviors is what we value. So it's really difficult for me to say that like no, it's just well, eventually I turned to eventually you just realize nothing fucking mattered, and it's just like one moment you're like lol God, and the next minute you stop believing in God and you're just like wait a minute, a rapist sticking his dick in someone against their will is just as valid of an action as giving money to a charity that prevents farming of animals or something. I don't fucking know.
And then you realize, oh wait, this kind of morality thing is more complicated. And actually, what the hell is morality? It doesn't even exist.
Right,
And so
right.
now I'm in a phase of my life where
It's more complicated. In fact, it doesn't even exist, so it's not complicated. It's not complicated at all. And you see, yeah, I think it is complicated. I think it comes down to like a bunch of utilitarianism, basically. It's pain's all that matters, so it's like it's simple in a way. But now we're measuring pain, and like there's a bunch of situations and shit, so it's complicated in a way. And then there's him. He's just like, it just doesn't exist, and everybody thinks it exists, but doesn't think it exists. And it's me, and I just want to do it benefits me. Ha ha ha. Get rich. So yeah, it's like I don't fucking. It's
and talking about it, I'm what's called an anti-realist when it comes to
I
morality.
know
In
what
other words,
anti-realism
I don't
is.
really believe or really subscribe to concepts of objective morality. When I talk about morality, I really think I'm talking about subjective constructs that are usually based on human preferences or preferences to principles like avoidance of suffering. For example, I'm also, of course, attempt to be vegan, try to be it as much as I can, and so I do care about animals.
See, this is just silly bullshit right here. When people use subjective, they use it in there's multiple ways to use subjective, and people there's like the common definition is just like there's an official definition which is like morale. A subject is the generator of experience of value or something like that, or there's like to each their own, this guy believes in blah, blah, blah. And they're kind of these guys are like, I what did they exactly say? We're at here.
From my Christianity, because I used to just have a very simple idea of, well, whatever God says is right. God is good all the time, and all the time God is good. It's really just that. And then you realize, oh wait, this kind of morality thing is more complicated. And actually, what the hell is morality? It doesn't even exist. And so now I'm in a phase of my life when talking about it, I'm what's called an anti-realist when it comes to morality. In other words, I don't really believe or really subscribe to concepts of objective morality. When I
Don't really believe or subscribe.
talk about morality, I really think I'm talking about subjective constructs that are usually based on human preferences or preferences to principles like avoidance of suffering.
Usually based on humans' preferences or preferences of avoiding suffering. I don't think avoiding suffering is just a preference. It's not just like, today I think I don't want to suffer. Today a nail in the eye is a bad thing. Tomorrow it might be a good thing. It's just like suffering to each their own, really. No, fuck you. You're talking like goddamn sausages. Preferences, never not suffering. Yeah, okay, fuck you. You clearly don't know what suffering means if you think it's just a preference. Just a little
For example,
preference. And then
I'm
he's
also, of
him
course,
nodding over here.
attempt to be vegan, try to be it as much as I can, and so I do care about animal
As
suffering.
much
Right?
as I
That
can.
usually doesn't.
Oh my god. I mean,
It's just like these people don't give a shit. They just talk they just say things to get they're egoists. They're evil fuckers. I mean, it's just like how can you genuinely be like, oh yeah, I care about this thing. It makes me feel bad. And at the same time be like, lol, but I partake in it, and at the same time, it's not really bad. It's just like me feeling things, and the reason I feel those things is there's no real reason behind it besides like evolutionary stuff. And but evolution is good because I know it makes me hurt for like dumb reasons for no reason that cosmologically don't matter, so therefore nothing matters. But evolutional things like procreation and making the species flourish. I'm cool with that. I'm cool with that. Like I just do not get their fucking mentality. Like I don't know, maybe I'm just weird. Maybe I'm just weird, but I don't fucking get the where how things are connecting their dots to be like, you know what? Yeah, I think I should be vegan, but I'm not vegan. But also at the same time, like, I'm sympathetic to antinatalist arguments, but at the same time, I'm not an antinatalist, nor I'm like, I'm child free, but I'm like, that's only because I just haven't had a child yet. I have nothing against having children. Like, well, like, where do you get your sense of anything from, bro?
it's better attempting to be vegan than not, obviously. But like,
Yeah, but
come on, man, you live in America, and you have enough time and stuff to be able to be.
honestly, yeah, like I was just at a party today, and some girl was just like, "Yeah, I was vegan for 5 years, and then I stopped." And she's like, "I think that's good enough, right?" I'm like, "No, it's really not. No, nothing is good enough. One, but two, I'm like, what made you stop?" And she's like, "It's just inconvenient. I was in Milwaukee, I'm in Green Bay, so it's just so." I'm like, I live in Green Bay, one, so it's not that difficult. Two, I mean, like, just stop being like partying slut. Didn't say that, but I was thinking that. I'm like, just like fucking eat at home for once, instead of spending money out on like getting bullshit. And they go on and get like some fucking like cookies with like cream topping and bullshit like that, like a little bit later for the birthday party. I'm like, oh my fucking god. They're all talking about getting like fucking ice cream cake and shit too. So it's like one of them's vegetarian. So it's just like they're like, oh, I want an ice cream cake, and I'm like, you're literally worse than like you're almost worse than a non like vegetarian or vegan because like at least fucking them they like know they're being like a shitty fucking person and they're like, oh, I need to improve. We're like, oh, I'm a shitty person and I should improve. I don't, there's things wrong with me. But then there's like vegans and they're just like, oh, I'm doing the best I can in this world. Things are just inherently bad. So it's just like being vegan is pretty great and cool in its own way, right? Just goes and slurps cow titty juice in a torture factory. It's just like I fucking hate being alive. Every moment of this is just I hate it. I hate it.
He's streaming like this, like I don't know. I don't know what his personal life is, but I feel like he doesn't seem like the sort of person who's in a situation where trying to be vegan or like being vegan is even hard. Like it's not hard in any way. If you're in a situation that he seems like he's in.
Everything to do with humans. When we talk about this, we're talking about other sentient beings. But I'm aware that they have a capacity for suffering. I want to try to avoid that suffering as much as possible. So,
but it's definitely
Why?
he's obviously aware of it and stuff.
Why? Why do you want to avoid their suffering? Who gives a shit? It's just inconvenient for you. It makes you feel bad. Marquis de Sade, if he was here, if Marquis de Sade, I love that man. He's a little bit of a weirdo, and I don't like that he was a pedophile or anything like that. That was very cool. And his whole like shit fetish was a little funky, but at the same time, besides him advocating for prostitutes to shit in your mouth and for CP, like Marquis de Sade had some really good points. And one of his points is that we basically suffer when we empathize with people. And that's a bad thing for us. So we should instead take pleasure from the suffering of others instead of empathizing with their suffering. And yeah, it's just like why in the fuck why are you if you're just a little subjectivist and you think everything's just why not just be a sadist? You should be a sadist. In fact, it's beneficial for you to be a sadist. It's not that you should like in the cosmic sense, but like if you actually care about yourself, like it would make sense for you from a logical perspective to be a sadist if you don't think that others' pain really matters in any like sense of like other than just them caring about themselves, like and you potentially caring. But you can easily stop yourself from caring, as Marquis de Sade says. You can easily become like me and find amusement in it, a deep pleasure, a deep satisfaction in the absurdity of it all. And you can just laugh a little bit. Hey, if the person's hot, you can get a I'm just saying. So when it comes down to it, like why care? Lawrence here is about to be like, I'm a subjectivist too, if I remember right. So it's just like, why be an antinatalist?
the decisions and choose the products that I do. So, in that sense, you can talk about morality in constructive ways. Just because you think that morality is a social construct doesn't mean that it's not "quote unquote" real, right? Most people say money is a social construct. That doesn't mean it doesn't have real impact, real consequences, real ramifications, because we treat it as real, and that's important enough for me. That's all that really matters to me, is that we do treat it as real. So, is morality real in an ultimate objective sense? Not really. If humans didn't exist or if conscious beings didn't exist that didn't care about themselves either way, I'm not sure if morality would even be a coherent concept. But there are beings that exist that care, and so that's kind of how I view it.
I think
So
it requires
trying to be short about it, but
you have. I think it requires experience to have value. It requires experience to have value for morality to occur. So I agree with that aspect of it. But it seems odd to me to say that like when something's in pain, it's just like simply social construct. Like it's just humans. Like if humans didn't exist, like an animal trapped in a tree, and like the stress seems like it would still be problematic regardless if another being is around to care about it. You know what I mean?
The thing is, I don't disagree. I think the fact that a being is in pain, the subjective experience of a being in pain, is an objective fact. I don't disregard that at all. When we say morality is subjective, we're saying the fact that we should care about.
Yeah, I agree with this subjectively, Dan guy. Like at the base of it, morality is subjective, but like you can build pretty objective frameworks off of those subjective values you hold, and people's
experience that value for morality to occur. So I agree with that aspect of it, but it seems odd to me to say that like when something's in pain, it's just like simply social construct. Like it's just humans. Like if humans didn't exist, like an animal trapped in a tree, and like the stress seems like it would still be problematic regardless if another being is around to care about it. You know what I mean?
The thing is, I don't disagree. I think the fact that a being is in pain, the subjective experience of being in pain, is an objective fact. I don't disregard that at all. When we say morality is subjective, we're saying the fact that we should care about.
Yeah, I agree with this.
The fact that we should care.
when we say morality is subjective, we're saying the fact that we should care about.
Yeah, I agree with this objectively, Dan guy. Like at the base of it, morality is subjective, but like you can build pretty objective frameworks off of those subjective values you hold, and people's subjective values tend to be quite similar by and large.
How
Like I said
so?
before,
Because if you talk to me, I have no problems with murder. The only reason I have problems with rape is because I wouldn't do it myself, basically. But otherwise, if I was in a room with a rapist, I wouldn't really have, like, I wouldn't be angry at him, you know? I'd just be like, I don't know this fucker. So, it's just like, why, like, I'm basically a psychopath, like, and it comes down to it, like, unless you raped my friend, I would just be like, oh, you know, it's not my business, you know? Maybe if you were in a pocket dimension, there was a gun there and some saw dude, and he was just like, kill the dude, and I give you $100. I'd be like, oh, wow, that's a dealio. Or like, you can do it for free and no consequence. I'd be like, wow, that's a dealio. Like, I gotta kill a rapist and have fun. Wow. But like at the same time, I don't have problems with a lot of things in terms of just like my emotional being, like my subjective experience of the world just doesn't give a damn. I'm turned on by a lot of fucking violent things. Like my brain just operates in reverse when it comes to a lot of morality. Like death is not bad. It's kind in my view, it's a good thing. Pain, in my view, has always been a turn on slash something that's viscerally exciting. Always, basically, if you just took me baseline before I went into philosophy exploration of politics, and just how the world works, trying to discover things, and wasn't guilt tripped about like me being like a fucking psycho and called weird. Yeah, I basically would be completely detached from your conversation, Lawrence. I wouldn't be an antinatalist. I wouldn't give a. I'd be like, I mean, like, I wouldn't have kids. They're fucking little creaking gremlin fucks. I don't want to have one. But y'all do whatever you want. You know, it's just more lambs for the slaughter, frankly. So I don't like what the fuck do you want? Like you guys genuinely think that people are similar enough to have these conversations? 20%, 20%, 20% of people are psychopathic. 1 to 2% are diagnosably psychopaths. Up to 3 if you include if it's men. So yeah, a large portion, millions of people, millions billions of people are psychopathic, and millions of people are diagnosed psychopaths. That's a lot of fuckers on this planet that would hack your children to death, do a bunch of shit, not give a fuck if they screwed you over, tax fraud, fiend off of you, pretend to be your grandma to get like 20 bucks. I don't know. Fucking whatever. Like, literally so many people that would fuck you over the slightest little thing, and you're trying to tell me that there's like, oh yeah, you know, there's similar enough everybody is generally similar enough. No, no, man, you're just in your own little close circles.
or they can be different, but like often the differences you can have with people when you get down to the base sometimes actually don't matter that much in reality. Because I've had conversations with people where if we talk in hypotheticals and all philosophical and stuff, then like we really disagree. But when you transport the conversation into real life and you talk about what's going on in the real world, we tend to be on the same page on the vast majority of things. So sometimes people in philosophical discussions can get caught up in sort of like the narcissism of small differences.
That. That's the difference, right? I do think we should care first and foremost, and I think most people who take an anti-realist stance also think we should care because we have
Why?
preferences, because we have values, right?
Because we
That's
have
really
preferences and values, but this is personal bullshit. Like, we know that, like, we know statistically speaking from evolution that like people are attracted to fucked up shit, and then everybody's just basically just going around being like, you know, that's bad. So it's just kind of like why I believe things are bad for actual fucking reasons, like pain, suffering. And you're just like, oh, you know, I think that's bad because mommy told me that's bad, and everybody told me that's bad, even though I don't like biologically feel it's bad, but like it must be bad. So therefore, it's just what's been installed into me now, and I feel that like in some weird way because it's like this feels awkward to say otherwise. So like, you know what? You have to believe the exact same thing as me, otherwise you are gonna be treated as taboo outcast. That's your reason. Your reason is might makes right. Your reason is majority makes power. Your reason is whoever convinced me the loudest is what everybody should believe. That's you're telling me that I should care about something because mommy convinced you that you care, not because pain's bad in some real sense, some visceral sense that cannot be denied. But no, because you are convinced by it, and other people are convinced by it, and just everybody just around you is convinced by it, and it doesn't matter what I think. It's what the majority think and what you think. Fuck you and your subjective nonsense. That's not what I'm saying. You're putting words in my mouth. In fact, what I'm actually saying is you're saying that you should do this, Brett, and I'm not saying you should do anything. In fact, that's my whole point is that like you shouldn't have to do anything. There is no should. It's an amoral universe, man. I just want you to do things, and it makes me more convenient for me when you do things the way I like them, and it makes me not feel bad. So that's how we should operate. Is just to try to convince people to be like yourself. Isn't that like the best thing, right? Like to be like you cuz you're basically like God or something. Like just you're so perfect. You're pitch perfect. Ooh, ooh. Just trying to convince everybody to be like yourself. Yeah. That sounds great. None of us are flawed. None of us have any issues. What's the point of discovering a correct form of morality when we can just an amoral universe and we're all better off just being trying to find what's consistent in ourselves and trying to push that on everybody else around us so that they don't have to make us feel upsetty spaghetti. Yeah, that sounds great. So if you're like the normal person, it's great. No issues for you guys. All you need to do is just be like, I think this. And everybody around you is like, I also think that. Wow. And then if you're like me, you just put a bullet through your head because you think murder's kind of cool. And you think that like serial killers are dope. And you think a bunch of shit that's fucking like random shit. So when it comes down to it, like people like me, we just get tossed under the bus, like there's like, oh, you're crazy and it doesn't matter if you think pain's bad in some way and that you shouldn't and that you probably shouldn't kill people because when it comes down to it, you have homicidal ideation and like if I were you, I would be out there stabbing people because all I do is act in what I want because I'm a subjectivist and everybody should act in what they want. Fuck you. Fuck you. Genuinely fuck you.
all we can get to at the end of the day. Otherwise, it's just a big circle. I really think that all these conversations about morality and stuff all just comes to because I have a preference, because I have this value. I don't think that we can get around that.
So if you were interacting with your psychopath, how would you be able to explain to them how something's bad under your view? Like you would be kind of trapped into saying like, because in my view, I can be like, hey,
that's a problem.
Eye,
no, it's not a problem. Because in my perspective, if I go up to that psychopath and I fucking just drive a fucking nail into his goddamn kneecap, twist, and be like, how does that feel, bitch? He's gonna be like, he'll be begging for me to stop, and I'll be like, why are you begging me to stop? He's like, it fucking hurts, man. It fucking hurts, bitch. You fucking know you that shit up. And I'm to be like, oh wow, that's pretty cool. And do you think this $5 bill is equal to your $5 bill? Yeah, man, fucking take the nail out, man. And then you think my pain's equal to your pain? Yeah, man, shut the hell up. Just take the nail out. And then guess the fuck what? When I rip that nail out of his fucking leg, I'll be like, you cunt. Now here's the fuck what? Your pain, my pain, equal. You think your pain matters to the point where you're willing to beg and absolutely humiliate yourself and remove all fucking self-respect. So I feel like you should at least be logically enough consistent to be like the same. But you would probably respond to me by being like, well, it's not really proving anything. That's just saying that you're willing to break a person down, and it still doesn't mean that it's like objective. It's just a subject breaking down. And I'd be like, fuck you. No one on this planet, when experiencing pain, can deny that pain is a bad thing, and no one, when experiencing pain, can say that it's something that ought not be like removed from themselves if it doesn't produce more pain to not do so. Whatever what I'd say. It's just like what the fuck, like it's just genuinely like what the fuck. Like what are they? Like I get it, like when you're like a little bit, because I used to be in the same boat. I used to agree with them in a way. Like I used to just be like, nothing fucking matters. I want to cut people open, play with their insides, rape their fucking corpse, and fucking mail their organs to their fucking family members, and have fucking like trail cam in like the neighbor's yard or something. you know. So like that's the type of thing that I wanted to do back when I was in high school. I didn't give a flying fuck about morality. I was just like when I'm older, I'm gonna be making Jeffrey Dahmer blush. That's how I was. So it's just like I understand these fuckers on a spiritual level. I understand nothing matters. It's all social contract. It's just you agree, I agree. You don't want to get killed. I don't want to get killed. So therefore, we make rules to not kill each other. Yay! You know, I understand. Believe me, you. But it has to be fucking more than that shit. Like you can't literally just go up to me. I refuse to, like, after taking psychedelics and shit. Perhaps just me being like spiritual god and shit. But like I don't know, man. I fucking can't just look at my best friend who got raped and was tortured for years by her fucking family and just go, yeah, the only thing that's, you know what? I can't even say that. No, I can't look at it and even say the only thing that bad there is my opinion, because even then, from subjective perspective, that to just say like it's not actually that bad. It's just like you viewing it as bad. So it's just like no, like I can't say that, like, it's just fucking impossible for me to comprehend that someone getting raped, tortured for years, and inevitably killing themselves after being betrayed by everybody in their whole entire life, pretty much, besides a literal fucking psychopath. I can't look at that bullshit, that fucking tragedy, and all the other tragedies in the infinite scale in this fucking shithole, and just be like, yeah, that's nothing but just atoms bouncing around. Because there's no universe feeling it directly, being like, this is bad, and I'm viscerally upset. Because there's no moral karma or some bullshit. I'm not allowed to say, I'm not allowed to say that is as close as you can get to, if not literally by definition, what we mean to say objectively bad. Like universally just is not cool, not kosher, not cash money, not down to code. Something's fucked up here. Something is unsettling, a negative, something is depriving the universe of what it should be. Something. I don't know, literally any terminology to say that like something is fucky wucky and not cool by it being in the state that it is. Like outside of other people's and that thing's opinion. Like if I take a coma patient and like if I get the person really drunk, okay, so that like their brain, or not even a coma patient, I just take a person so drunk that like they can't maintain a memory and really process things on a deep level, but I just like fucking drive a nail into their leg. Like they're gonna be like, ow. Like, basically, I'm just like trying to like set up a scenario where I'm creating raw pain, but not without like a deep comprehension. I still say that's a bad thing. I say it's a bad thing, even if there's not even if the subject's so far gone that there's barely even a subject there. It's just raw experience, and it's just a painful experience, a negative experience. I say that's a bad thing. Okay? Like, you guys are just are saying that there needs to be some, like, subject to, like, analyze the situation, some human, he says earlier, or, like, animal to be like, oh, I think this is a bad thing. And I'm gonna go, like, oh, what if a tree's fall in a forest? It doesn't make a sound of an analogy. Like, and then they're like, no, it's a bad thing for the animal under the tree. And I'm gonna, like, it's just fucking.
And the reason that it's bad to nail in your eyes because pain is bad to be experienced, like objectively for a subjective experience is bad.
Yeah.
And your pain is equal to my pain, regardless, because your $5 is equal to my $5. Your pain is equal to my pain, regardless of if you're experiencing it or if I'm experiencing it. So I have like a reason for why, like, so for you it seems to be just kind of like, well, if you think it's bad, I think it's bad, then it's like we're in agreement and kumbaya. But if it's a psychopath or someone who's like completely like from like Islam, and they're just like, yeah, I like tossing gay people off roofs. It's what we do. It makes me feel good, and it's what I want. Then it's just like you can't get through to them. It's just like, what do you do under your view?
I get the frustration that Brunt is talking about there. Like, I do find it frustrating as well that
You should find it very frustrating, my dude. You're a subjectivist and you're an antinatalist. No one on the planet fucking agrees with us. How do you genuinely think you have? Why do you convince people, Lawrence? Why do you convince people? Why go out of your way? Why go? Why pain yourself? Why empathize with? As I said about Marquis de Sade, why empathize with any of these unborn? Why empathize with a newborn child or a person on their deathbed and be like, oh, it's a tragedy that you're going through this? Why do any of this bullshit when you could just close yourself off, harden your heart a little bit? It's just subjective. Why not have your subjective experience be a little better? I mean, well, I can't control that. It's just who I am. No, believe me, you can. I've begun to feel things, and it took me years to do it, but you can close yourself off if you really want to. I've seen people do it. People go through abuse, they close themselves off rather easily, and I'm sure if you really want to, you put your heart into it, you could just watch the most visceral thing. You could probably watch that video of that brick going through the fucking car window and crushing this guy's wife's skull with a kid in the back street, and he just starts crying and screaming. The husband does. You could probably watch that and not feel a thing if you really want to. I'm sure if I watched it a couple more times, I'd be like, I'd find it more funny than anything else. So when it comes down to it, like we can harden ourselves. Come on, Lawrence. Why not just give it a go? Like, what's the point of being an antinatalist? Why convince people? Why try to find these these frameworks and trying to convince people that they need to be consistent and be consistent with your values and specific and find these common grounds? Why find a common ground and then do all this fucking bullshit work just for people to 90% of the time be hypocritical and just be like, well, to each their own. I don't really feel like it. I want to have kids though. So like, why go through all this horse shit if everything is just he thinks that, she thinks that, and when it comes down to it, so long as you're consistent, who cares? It's subjective. Because I'm fairly consistent in myself. I mean, I'm fairly damn consistent as a negative utilitarian. But you can say to me, oh, well, your negative utilitarianism is just subjective. But so long as it's consistent, why shouldn't I, in your opinion, be negative? Why shouldn't I like act on negative utilitarianism and stuff like that? Like, why, like when it comes down to it, like there's so many things like that I want to ask like Anton here, like why, under his view as a subjectivist, shouldn't people do things that are like what I view objectively as bad? Like, I think they are objectively bad to rape someone without having a very fucking good reason, such as like preventing 2 rapes. You can prevent 2 rapes by causing 1 rape. You've prevented a net suffering, and then therefore, unfortunately, yes, you should rape or whatever. I have reasons. I have validations for the things I believe. Like everything I believe is consistent and has reasons for it. I'm just kind of like, why the fuck would you? How are you gonna convince me I'm wrong? Why would you even try to convince me I'm wrong? You're not even gonna be able to do that. I'm not gonna find common groundwork because all I value is pain. I don't value anything really. In fact, when I say I value pain, I mean like I value it from an intellectual level, and like I understand that when I feel physically dislike it and mentally dislike it. And my $5 becoming your $5, maybe it would be logically consistent to be like, oh, it probably shouldn't apply with you. But I don't feel anything when other people suffer, other than amusement, really. So honestly, like if it comes down to just like experiential, like what I experience is how things should go, well, suffering's pretty Gucci. So it's just kind of like we don't have as much common ground as you like to think, Anton, in terms of experience. Like we do and we don't. We all experience things as bad, but when it comes to how we experience others' experiences, well, things get a little shaky. So it's just kind of like, what the fuck, Anton? What the fuck? Why, like, how do you generally, like, how do you go about convincing people, like, in good faith that, like, because it just seems like it's like winning to win, right? Like like that's like that's what it's like when you watch like do like vegan debates and stuff. Like I get that, and if you're like a deontologist or something, or just like all you care about is animal rights, like you might just be like whatever means to get to the end goal. So like you play devil's advocate here and there, you do things, and you do whatever you have to do to convince someone to go vegan. You agree with points that you don't generally agree with and stuff, just to like get them to like side with you and stuff like that. Like I can see that being beneficial, but I don't see it as like something good per se. Like I mean, I do in a utilitarian sense, but I don't like see it as like honorable, I suppose. Like, and to me, that seems like you're pretty much forced to do that with every conversation. Like, if you're subjectivist, like you pretty much just like if your goal is to find a common ground and then debate and push their points to agreeing with you from that common ground point of view, then you're basically either forced to just be like, I don't want to have any conversation with anybody, or kind of like not even be yourselves. It'd be like this wishy mosh thing, and like find where you kind of like both agree. As Gary once said, meeting in the middle means you both lose. So it's kind of like you either have nothing to lose, which is kind of what subjectivists are in the boat of, or you're otherwise it's just not worth it because you lose. So it's just like I'm thinking you're in the boat of like there's just nothing to lose. I'm a subjectivist, everything's woo wah, and it's just like I want things to be good and kosher, and it makes me feel like in a community. I like feeling in a community, and I like having views and stuff like. I don't know. Like I don't want to fucking be an asshole, Anton, but like it's just like I am frustrated here, okay? Like how do people genuinely fucking go for the world interacting people, telling them they should behave in certain ways, that murder's wrong, rape's wrong, bullying's wrong, XYZ is wrong, and ABC is right. How do people go around saying all this horse shit if all they believe is that it's just their fucking opinion and there's nothing behind it? It's like the God dilemma, okay? It's the literal God dilemma, the moral dilemma of God, where it's like, does God make right or does God discover right? Like, is God just make right based off definition? Therefore, God could define that murder is correct and rape is correct, or does God discover that what's morally correct and morally wrong? And so, therefore, morality is outside of God, and we don't actually need God for morality. It's the age-old question. It's kind of like that. It's just like, why I forgot where I was fucking going with that, but like where was I going with that? It was supposed to be a good point. I don't know. Basically, if you, it's like a might makes a right thing in a way. Yeah, it's like God's might because he's the one in charge. I mean, he defines good or he discovers good, and I'm in the boat where it's like, no, I think there is a way to discover good. there is like and discover bad. There's like a way, and that is understanding that pain is bad objectively. Like all subjects experience pain as bad. But then like what Anton here is saying, and like these two assholes are saying, these skeptics are basically just like, no, it's kind of like the opposite. It's not you God discovers right. It's you make right. And if you can convince others, if you have the much power, if you have authority, if you can be convincing, if you have enough riz, doesn't matter how you convince them. It doesn't matter how, so long as you are consistent and you convince them. Gucci. And I just think that's fucking saucy bullshit because there's so many things that can be consistent. You can be consistent by being like, nothing matters, or like everybody should suffer as much as possible, or like whatever. And you could genuinely go about a lifestyle in that way. And someone to be forced under a subjectivist point of view to be like, oh yeah, well they're being consistent. I don't like it that way, but they're being consistent. It's just like it's horseshit. It's horseshit. Whatever.
If morality is subjective, someone can always try to appeal to that as a way of justifying what they're doing as completely fine. Like I agree, it can be frustrating when someone does that, and there can be ways that someone can overcome that within the framework of subjective morals. But despite how frustrating that is, like the universe does not exist for things to be ethically simple. Like it can be the case that like the fact that the fact that someone
The universe doesn't exist but isn't ethically simple. Well, you're saying that ethics don't exist at all. You're saying that like it's just morality, like basically it's just like opinions and stuff. They're not actually ethics. Ethics implies there's like a right and wrong and ought not. And you're saying it's not simple, it's complex. But at the same time that you say it's complex, you say it doesn't exist. So you're not talking about ethics. You're not talking about morality. You're just talking about opinions and trying to convince people of your opinions through consistency.
can do that.
Fuck, you're not even trying to say it through consistency, really. You're just like you are and they are because you're atheists and you're generally based on like scientific methods and stuff. Other people would say that whatever works emotions. Who says? But like, why? Who makes consistency any more valid than emotions? Huh? Not you. Not the universe, clearly. So it's just like you subjectivists have nothing. There's no reason to believe anything. There's no reason to try to convince anybody of
Get
anything.
them to agree with you is not an argument for the fact that morality is objective. It's more an argument of why you would want it to be objective because it makes having these discussions easier. Maybe I miss.
Well, it makes discussions fucking possible for one. Like I don't think you guys are just having discussions for no reason. Like it's just like it's like it's like how atheists like say like, oh, the universe just must have popped out of an existence out of nothing. It's like that. It's like your conversation popped out of fucking thin air. It's just like, oh yeah, for some reason I just have the desire to like convince people that antinatalism is correct and having children's wrong, and imposing harm is a bad thing, and there's no reason because it's just move on. It's just like, no, it's like, yeah, sure, it makes it easier to have the conversation because it's an actual conversation to have. Like, you guys are just trying to convince each other that, like, your penis is bigger than the other person's penis, like, even though they're the same size. Because they're all equally non-functional and invalid and useless in the universe's grand design or subjectivism. It's just like, who cares if something's consistent? Who cares if something's emotionally charged or, like, convincing? Like, who cares under subjectivism? Why convince any of you fuckers of anything? Why have this channel, Anton, other than the fact that it gives you money?
Understanding what Brand is saying here, but to me, that's an argument for why morality is objective.
Yeah. So let me address this.
And to be clear, like this is something that I'm still like trying to navigate. Yeah, I don't really know what I think about whether morality is objective or subjective at the moment, but I lean quite heavily towards subjective at the moment.
And I'll answer this quickly, and I want to give Brady a chance to also chime in because I don't want to take off the whole time. But yeah, so when we're talking about folks who experience psychopathy, and again, just reiterate, I have no professional medical experience or whatever, right? We are talking about folks who, in general, when they have a
Fuck off.
diagnosis of psychopathy, tend to struggle with empathy, right? Tend to struggle with valuing other people and their feelings and their
It's just a
desires, right?
kind
So
way of
I think
putting
the fact
manipulating
that
people.
morality is the way that it is exactly why it is so hard to talk to people who experience psychopathy. Like that is literally why we have so much trouble with having folks who do break these kinds of social norms and legally enforced norms as well, literal laws, because they don't have that same sense of value. I think our society works because most of us do have that sense of value and we operate within that. But when you're outside of that construct, if you lack that construct, you just can't do it. So to me, it's kind of like asking, well, how are you going to convince a cat that it's going to experience right and wrong? And not to dehumanize people who experience psychopathy, but it's like, look, an animal is going to experience or have the wants that it wants. You can only do so much to influence that. There's not really much we can do. Human beings are the same way. We're just animals that want what we want. We have these things called society that we work around, but I mean that's really the only tool or instrument that.
It's kind of frustrating that like it's got derailed onto whether
Oh,
morality
fuck
is
off, Anton. This man literally just said, what do you say precisely?
Morality is the way that it is exactly why it is so hard to talk to people who experience psychopathy. Like that is literally why we have so much trouble with having folks who do break these kinds of social norms and legally enforced norms as well, literal laws, because they don't have that same sense of value. I think our society works because most of us do have that sense of value and we operate within that. But when you're outside of that construct, if you lack that construct, you just can't do it. So to me, it's kind of like asking, well, how are you going to convince a cat that it's going to experience?
You don't need to convince a cat, because a cat's not a moral agent. Now, a psychopath, you don't need to convince a psychopath. I don't really consider them moral agents either. Now, what I'm saying is that they're wrong to cause pain. The pain is just really bad either way. It's like they're not just to mean. It doesn't matter to me if they're like if their opinion is different. If like if you can't convince a cat that its actions are wrong, what matters is the fact that the pain that it causes is wrong. The pain they cause is visceral and intense and real. It's a bad thing. It doesn't matter if the animal doesn't have the free will to understand that.
It's right and wrong. And not to dehumanize people who experience psychopathy, but it's like, look, an animal is going to experience or have the wants that it wants. You can only do so much to influence that. There's not really much we can do. Human beings are the same way. We're just animals that want what we want. We have these things called society that we work around, but I mean that's really the only tool or instrument that.
It's kind of frustrating that like it's got derailed onto whether morality is subjective or objective rather than about antenatal.
Well, here's the thing, Anton. If you want to try to convince me that if I really truly wanted to have kids, okay, you're gonna either need to like convince me that something really fucking bad is gonna happen to myself and I should be selfish. More selfish than having a child. I should be more selfish than that. I should be selfish and not have a child. And or you're gonna have to convince me that something's actually wrong with having a child. But if there's no objective baseline of something being wrong in the universe, you're basically just kind of trying to poke around in my brain for something I guess I dislike, and then being like, "Oh, it might happen to your kid, or it might happen to you if you have a kid, or and that would be bad." But if I just accept that risk, if I just say I don't care, then what the fuck do you have, Anton? What the hell do you have? Nothing. Nothing. I have pain is bad, and there's no subject to ever experience a sensation that is of like aversive, aka pain, will ever say or experience it as something desirable or good or worth repeating unnecessarily. I have reasons. You have, oh, well, I guess I agree on this with that guy, so I guess we can convince him of this, maybe. It's just like, what the fuck?
Fatalism, but
We can use to enforce people outside of
I
wanting it.
don't think it requires free will to. I don't think you need free will. You can be completely programmed. I think all people are pre-programmed. Billions of years of evolution, But like, just as like I can't like say a cat is morally responsible for something, I can say that the pain it causes in the universe when it kills a mouse is bad. I don't believe death is bad, but I can say the pain of it having its throat crushed or whatever is a bad thing, and I think that's objectively true. That like all beings are some common ancestor, and because of that, they experience suffering and pain as a negative experience that ought to be avoided.
I want Brady to chime in. Also, Brady was making faces while I was talking, so I think he disagrees.
Well, I'm just offended by the one-to-one comparison to cats to psychopaths.
Why?
I just don't know if
They're non-moral agents, both of them. I mean, they're both somewhat intelligent that do things like causing pain to other beings. So when it's unnecessarily for entertainment purposes, cats do that. They play with their food. Psychopaths do that. They play with their food, so to speak sometimes. And it's a fair comparison, in my opinion.
Well, that's why I want to make the. Let me again. On a live show, you sometimes come up with stuff on the fly, and it's not great. It's more just, you have to work with where you're at. You got to work with where people are at, and people who experience reality in different ways are going to have that experience. You just have to work with them where they're at, and that's why you treat people with different mental capacities differently. That's it. That's all I was trying to make with that. It was a clumsy analogy, to be fair. So sorry about that. But
and as a gay man who has dated other gay men, I kind of get wanting to throw some of them off of a bridge. Just to go back to your previous example.
So now Brady is balancing out my controversial statement with his own controversial, which I appreciate. Brady. Really, that's good. I appreciate it.
No, actually, honestly, Brain, I really do like the way that you kind of described how your morality works, because I think that for me, coming out of fundamentalism, it was just book says this, God's preferences matter. But then as I got out of that, I realized, oh, my system had to like hit a reset and had to have a new starting point. And my new starting point was similar to what you were saying, was a very like dynamic way of empathy of, I don't like this pain, I don't want to give it to others. And then it kind of like sprung off of that and kept going. So like, yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I appreciate that sort of line of thinking, because whenever we have just
I don't know. It just seems to me like literally impossible to be generally experiencing something like being raped, tortured, having your fucking ribcage pried open and shoved down your esophagus or some shit, and just be like, yeah, man, this is just atoms bouncing around in an arrangement that makes me go ouch, and I don't like it. But that's it. Nothing bad about this. There's no. It's not like it ought not to occur. It's not like this. It's not like it'd be better off if the universe wasn't like this. It's not like it's not like this like has some fundamental error. It's not some like fucking something wrong. It's just like if a tree falls on the floor, doesn't make a sound. If like it's just like if a person doesn't get stabbed, doesn't make the world better. That's kind of what I'm asking. Like to them, it's just kind of like. And to me, it's just like fucking obvious. Like, yeah, like of course it's not. Of course, it's not a good thing to have like pain unnecessarily in the world. If you could have no pain, some pain, or whatever. These hoes. Hmm. Suppose. We can watch some YouTube. Because I don't feel like going to sleep. So I've slept all day, basically. I don't. It's no point in being awake, really. There's really no point in being awake. Being awake is just pain for the most part. But
it's all endured by one person. Did you just start recording now, or were you recording?
Well, I was recording, but I switched cameras. That's all. Yeah, the other one ran out of memory. So
No, you're not using your standard thing that you record Tiny Chat with.
right. Well, I just figured I'd do the video since it's here, right? What's the difference?
Well, this is not a immediate upload or anything, right? Because I'd like to hear it before you upload it, if you choose to upload it.
Yeah, that's fine. I can just put it on whatever that is, hidden, and just give you the link, and you can look at it. I just figured there'd be something to the. I mean, I might as well post a video if possible. It doesn't matter. So it's half me or half you or whatever.
Yeah, no,
it doesn't matter to me. It's okay if you want me just to do an MP3. I'll just rip an MP3.
No, I'm fine with the video. I just want to make sure that I hear it before we post it, just in case I think some part is kind of.
Yeah, I know you're very.
I pull a word or something.
I understand. Right? I understand.
I've had a lot of videos I never uploaded because I fumbled a word and I reshot the whole thing, and then I hated the whole thing the second time, so I just didn't upload it.
Yeah. Well, we're all anal, but we're all anal about different things. Yeah.
I'm especially anal, I think. But yeah, no. I mean, that's the average versus total. Is you can endure 1,000,000 harm units, or 1,000,000 people can endure 1,050,000 harm units. But I'm still gonna say that I'm gonna go okay, even if it's the total overall more, as long as it's being endured split up by that many more subjects, then I'm gonna say I don't care if it's a total sum that is higher because it's split up.
Well, I'm not going to disagree with that. I mean, I don't know like I said, we're cutting this into I keep using this physics analogy, so I hope that doesn't bother you too much. But I mean, yeah, I mean, you can almost
does actually, it kind of does. But go ahead.
But well, I'm just saying because you have factors. You know what I'm saying? You have like times squared, right? Times its hypotenuse squared. Be like something like gravity. Okay, gravity increases by its distance squared. You know what I'm saying? So the energy level is a function of some square of the distance, and so you could argue that with suffering there's a likewise scenario where the more it's piled into one individual, it starts to square the effect, and so a little bit of suffering in one individual is now 16 units, where in 4 people it's only 1 unit.
I understand that, and I should send you a fucking hour-long video I shot where I devised these whole scenarios, but I never uploaded it because it's on my old laptop and I need to dig it up. But I devised all of these things, and anytime I say million versus 1,000,001 or something, that is taken into consideration, right? So I don't omit the squared aspect. It is with the squared aspect that I'm tallying these things. But yeah, we shouldn't go over that because I'll probably just end up uploading that video, and we could deal with that bridge whenever we cross it. So yeah, I didn't much care for the manner in which you dealt with my counter psychology critique, because I didn't mean to disparage people who reach this conclusion through, I guess, a personal sense. I just dislike how often you make it seem as though it's everything that's believed by this side is counterintuitive and can only be reached after we have some sort of a trouble reaching it emotionally, and we have to really be, I guess, emotionally courageous, and we have to try our best not to believe it. Whereas the other side believes everything they believe because they just want to, and it's that simple. And we have these two piles, and tra la la la, and look at us, we're so wonderful and brave, and we're valiant thinkers. And it's not that simple. A lot of people gain catharsis because of their position, be it a pessimistic position or an optimistic position. And I just thought I made some really neat examples in the post, and you just sort of shat on it and said it's nothing. And
yeah, well, I know. Well, you reposted it in the comments, didn't you? Isn't that the one where you posted your statement in the comments? I think you even quoted yourself. I'm not sure if that was the video, but yeah, I think it was.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay, so we all time there's sometimes I make a video and I say, God damn, that's such a good point. How could anybody miss that point? It's so brilliant. But yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't think it was such a brilliant argument to even initiate, because it just gets into this whole. I don't think there's any way. I'd like to be able to separate and say there's some sort of way that a computer could possibly know what it means to suffer without suffering. But I don't think it could, okay? Like, how would I explain feelings to a computer? Impossible, right? So
but that's a different that doesn't even, I don't see how that even enters into the equation of what I was arguing. Like take a look at determinism. Okay, now there's this view that determinism is depressing, right? Now, I mean, chances are you're a loser. Well, then, if you don't believe in determinism, then everything is, in fact, your fault, right? Your stake in life, your shortcomings, well, then, yeah, you are directly to blame because you have the ability to alter your future, and it's just you're not really dealt a bad card. It is your doing. So the belief that determinism is in any way depressing typically would only get expressed by a psychology that is proud of itself in the first place, right? And that doesn't want to admit that they were just dealt a good hand in life and that they earned it themselves. So you can sort of see how this might cross over to other quote unquote pessimistic philosophies.
Well, I'm just saying that though, but I'm always going to concede that we're going to emotionally react based on our ego, and there's no way to separate the fact that we're sentient beings. We're going to emotionally react. You're making the charge that the philosophy is being corrupted by.
No. I'm just taking issue with the fact. Sorry to cut you off, but I'm just taking issue with the fact that you always rag on your detractors by making it seem as though they can't handle the truth. And I'm telling you, a lot of times, a lot of people, you look at some of those Schopenhauer videos, they are comforted by the very same sort of talk that you spout. So I'm just saying the inverse charge can be made. And that's all I'm saying. I'm not necessarily ragging on the philosophy itself in the section. So that's
well, I guess I don't sense any of this. First, I don't sense that I've done what you've stated I've done, which is excessively harp on these psychological elements. But I mean, I certainly have said that, look, we have a really obvious truth here, and there seems to be a huge psychological incentive to deny the truth, like truths like determinism. Why does determinism get denied? Because people's egos can't handle it. They don't want it.
People's egos.
Well, I'm just saying, though, I think the vast majority of people who can't accept it have huge ego problems with this. And I think it's always tied to an ego problem because there's absolutely nothing threatening about determinism. All right. It's absolutely non-threatening, and yet they're hysterically overreacting. And you're saying, why are they doing that? Because they need it to be true. Okay, they can't.
They need free will to be streaming.
Well, yeah, I think they need free will, and I think they need to think they are legitimately better than other people, and they've earned it somehow, and all that kind of crap. And they don't want to accept the fact that no, I was really lucky. I got born in America. They just don't want to.
I just think a lot of blue collar stiffs who don't really have anything to show for their 5 or 6 or 7 or 8, however many decades on Earth, hell, or even a couple of decades on Earth. I think people who don't really go anywhere, yeah, you find out about determinism. The catharsis can manifest itself in that way, in knowing that you were just dealt a shitty blow from the get go. You did not.
BRB. Testing 1, 2. There we go. Oobunga boonga.
Much has been said about the nature of moral claims, specifically whether such claims can be objectively true, that is, true independently
My bad.
of individuals' attitudes or beliefs. Many people answer no to this. Some of these people are moral nihilists, people who believe there are no moral truths at all. But others think this is throwing too much out, and that what we should say is rather that there are moral truths, but that they're subjective. Relativists and subjectivists take this position. On both views, as they're typically understood, moral truths are subjective in the sense that while there are true moral statements, they are relative to or determined by the beliefs or attitudes of particular individuals or groups of individuals. On these views, a statement like infanticide is wrong means something like infanticide is wrong relative to the moral code of this or that society, or I, the speaker, disapprove of infanticide. In this way, many people believe they can avoid commitment to objective moral truths without becoming nihilists. But, as philosophers like Paul Boghossian have argued, these views seem to be open to the objection that the claims that they generate are not moral claims at all. If I say infanticide is wrong, I'm making a moral statement, a normative statement. That is, I'm claiming that one ought not to kill infants. Whereas if I say infanticide is wrong relative to this or that culture, or I disapprove of infanticide, these don't look like normative statements, but merely descriptive statements about societies or identities. And this is why even someone who believes that infanticide is permissible can fully agree with the statement that, for example, relative to this or that moral code,
Basically, what I'm
it is
saying is, yeah, they're
impermissible.
just describing. All these
Because
subjective
again,
people,
they're
like,
just describing
they're just
what
describing
follows
bullshit.
from a certain moral code. It is not a moral claim. So I think neither relativism nor subjectivism, at least as I understand them, offers a genuine alternative to moral nihilism. So does this mean that we should be moral nihilists? I think not. Consider a statement like torturing children for fun is wrong. Now, one way we can understand statements of this kind is in terms of reasons. So if I say it's objectively wrong to torture children for fun, roughly what I'm saying on this view is that there's a reason, or you might say a decisive reason, not to torture children for fun, irrespective of one's desires or preferences. So it's a claim about these reasons. Now, this seems strange to many people. If someone doesn't care about something, say torturing
Howdy,
children,
welcome to the club.
why should they care? So the thought here is a general one. If someone is fully informed about X, they either care about X or they don't. And there's nothing really beyond that. In other words, we can't say someone is irrational for not caring about X or that they should care about X if they simply don't. Now, this seems false. Consider first a strange but conceivable case. Imagine someone who cares about what happens to them, but never cares about future experiences, things that will happen to them. They always care about pain when it's now, but not about pain that they'll experience at future times. Thus, such a person, when deciding whether to avoid doing something now that will obviously cause them to be in severe pain tomorrow, would have no present desire to do so. And thus, on the sort of view we're considering, would, it seems, have no reason whatever to avoid causing themselves to be in severe pain tomorrow, even though they're going to absolutely hate the pain tomorrow. And this is because to say that such a person would have a reason now in the absence of a desire, a present desire, would be to appeal to an objective reason, a reason that is independent of the individual's attitude. But this indifference to future experiences does seem irrational. That is, there is reason, it certainly seems, to care about one's future experiences, even if one does not care about them. In short, one should care. The mere fact that some pain is in the future, after all, does not make it any less painful. But again, if the view is basically you either care about something or you don't, we'd have to say that this person's indifference is not in any way unreasonable or subject to rational criticism. And I find this just hard to believe. So perhaps one can have reasons to care about something that one does not care about. And if there can be objective reasons of this sort, moral reasons can perhaps be like this also. So return to the claim about child torture. A likes to torture children and does not care about causing children to suffer. To say that torturing children is objectively wrong is to say that there are objective reasons against doing it. A might not care about the suffering they're causing, but should care. Well, why? Well, I think the reason here is not unlike the reason to care about one's future experiences. The mere fact that a painful experience will be in one's future does not make it any less important. Similarly, the mere fact that a painful experience is not one's own does not make it, I would argue, any less important. Now, what A might say is this: yes, but it's my pain, so it is more important. But then the response is, what's so special about your pain? A might
Nothing.
say it's mine, so it counts for more. But suppose someone were to say this: my $5 is worth more than your $5 because it's mine. Well, that's just false. And why would it be different for the worth of similar conscious states? A might eventually say, well, I care about my pain, and I don't care about others' pain. And while this may be true, arguably this is irrational in much the same way that future indifference is irrational. In both examples, one appears to be failing to see that something is worth caring about. So again, the claim is that reasons of this kind and truths about these reasons, both moral and self-interested ones, can be objective, that they don't depend on our attitudes. But still, you might wonder, why should I care about these reasons? After all, I don't have to care about them, in the sense that it's possible to choose not to act in accordance with these reasons. But I think what that question really amounts to is, why should I do what I have acknowledged are reasons to do? Or, in other words, why should I do what I should do? Of course, how much practical significance this sort of dispute about the nature or status of moral claims has is another matter. That is, to what extent such beliefs determine how individuals actually live their lives, morally speaking. But I do think it's worth taking some time to think about and discuss meta-ethical questions of this sort. Questions, as Peter Singer says, not within ethics, but about ethics.
So, Mark, before we begin, do you want to say a few words about yourself and what you do?
I am interested in general philosophy, particularly with ethics. A lot of people will know me from the Exploring Antinatalism podcast. Prior to this, I was just in a discussion on animal ethics and talking about the philosopher Steve Bess and his critique about pacifism. And And then I've been thinking about how do we ground knowledge, and then I've been thinking about intergenerational ethics as well. So it's kind of like all over the place. I don't really have a set grounding of what I'm thinking about. I try to think. I just think about everything at once.
What is your ethical theory?
So I call myself like a quasi deontologist because I'm not too sure which one. But that's a vast difference than. So I think I was like a negative utilitarian for close to 7 years, maybe 8. I can't remember. Yeah, I was a big proponent of it, and now it makes. Now I've completely shifted my view, and I'm not too sure what is whatever realm of ethics I go into. This seems to be like a real big point of contention depending on like how you approach ethics. And I don't think there's a winning of this debate. Like, I think this is just like you can articulate your views, and hopefully the person they haven't heard these critiques before, and maybe they'll shift over. But I feel like in general, in just like the general realm of philosophy, this is like a battle that'll go on for a very long time. I forgot, what is your view again?
I would consider myself a utilitarian, but I think it's wise not to commit to any particular ethical theory, because there's an advantage, right, of having
practical advantage.
I think also philosophical advantage.
Okay. I mean, like, yeah, if you can make an argument that's theory neutral, that's
yes,
awesome.
Exactly. Yeah. Because I think that's the thing. We have to recognize that these things aren't settled philosophically.
Right.
And so I like to approach antinatalism and other things from various perspectives.
Same. And I think it's actually intellectually honest, because like people have certain views and frameworks for how they approach ethics, right? And so it's like, okay, well, you have a different view, I have a different view. I'll give you the multiple views, and whatever framework you're working with, we can work towards all roads lead to antinatalism.
Yes, well, that's the hope. Yeah, exactly. So I guess it's a kind of I wouldn't even call it respect, but it's just recognizing that these are very difficult issues, right, in ethics. And although I'm inclined to accept some form of utilitarianism, I'm open to other kinds of arguments, right, non-utilitarian arguments for antinatalism, and I'm going to use those if I think that they have force. If I think that, if they strike me as plausible. So I think there's a.
Okay. Can I pause you there? Because like that triggers me. when you say I'll adopt this argument because it has force, is it force for who your interlocutor, or is it yourself? That's what I'm really trying to figure out. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Myself. I actually feel the force of these arguments, if that makes sense.
Oh, okay.
It's a kind of, it pulls me for a moment, and then I go back to utilitarianism. But I guess the utilitarian in me says, if they work, use them.
This is the difference that I really, really dislike. Not that I dislike you. I meant, so when I got into animal ethics, I've heard that for years with activist circles, and my heart is in the technical details. And I actually feel like if I have to spend time, I feel like in terms of like allocating my time, one could say you ought to give very general arguments and try to just convince as many people as possible. And for me,
who said he doesn't? Catherine Maria says, Oman G, he said he dislikes you. T trauma. Wait, who? I'm confused. Talking about like noodles, or you're talking about the video I'm watching right now is from like a while ago. This guy, he might dislike me a little bit. I mean, I've talked in the comment sections, we have disagreements, but I don't think he dislikes me. I mean, it's definitely possible. Anyways, I'm gonna play the video again.
My heart is driven, my feels, all right, this is not analytic philosophy here, that I want to go into the meta physics and the meta ethics and the grounding of antinatalism. And I feel like a lot of antinatalism work can be propagated in multiple fields, like feminist literature, for example, feminist ethics. Like antinatalism should be engaged heavily in that sphere. I think it will be eventually, and a few feminists have, like what's her name, Christine Overall, and there's a few others. But my point is that I'd like to see people that specialize in meta ethics and other fields engage with antinatalism on a very, very technical basis. Now, is that practical? Is that going to maximize the good? I don't know. But I think that we need what helps me sleep at night is the hope for a more solid theoretical
Who the fuck dislikes me?
grounding. I think that if I don't have a good theoretical grounding for my belief system, this is why, like, I have a surface level knowledge of meta ethics, but
Howdy do you, welcome to the channel. We're just big vibing. Volta6 says, help me. I would love to help you, comrade. What do you need help with? I have AIDS. Ah, shit. I can't help you with that one. Well, great thing about AIDS is nothing. But what's great about having AIDS in the modern age is that most of it is completely able to be taken care of with medication. So, recommend talking to your doctor if you somehow haven't, though I'm guessing you did because that's how you got diagnosed. Get on some medication. Just inform your partners in the future of it. They'll wear condoms and stuff. And yeah, just need me a prep. Too much anal intercourse with men happens, Honestly, really big rip. But when it comes down to it, should use those condoms, I guess, or made sure your men were clean, I guess, beforehand. It happens though to the best of us. To be fair, I just started dating a transsexual slash, that means biological woman, sorry, biological man, and transitioned into a woman. So she is pretty attractive. So I mean, I don't know, like she's clean though. So I mean, like, so I'm dating though. I haven't really like. I kind of got in a little bit of a hoe phase, but I'm trying to get out of it a little bit. So yeah, it's just how it be. The hoe phase, it's just a thing. It's a thing. Everybody goes through a hoe phase. Mine was just a little later in life. I mean, to be fair, I've always been a little bit hoe, but I haven't been able to get women until I got this mustache. Full House says twink pussy is the best pussy. I believe it, my dude. According to Perpetual Pleasurist, ass is better than pussy. So that means, statistically speaking, uh, you know, every guy has an ass. So that means like every guy has pretty good options for getting people off. So yeah, man, you're probably right. Probably right. I'm playing some Apex Legends over here. So if I seem distracted, it's because I'm dying. I suck ass at this game. For some reason, this person came in here named Catherine Maria and said that somebody doesn't like me, and I'm like, that's interesting. Don't know why people don't like me, other than the fact that I'm absolutely horrifyingly amateur of an asshole to everybody I talk to ever. You seem like a chill dude. Thank you. I appreciate it. Have a good stream, my man. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I will. You have a good night. These almonds are tasty. Not almonds, cashews. E What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. No, I'm gonna end the stream. I'm gonna start a new stream, and that stream's gonna get demonetized. Well, not demonetized, not even monetized. It's gonna get removed. It's gonna get removed because I'm playing music, but not on this one.